Everybody act tough when they up.
It's the Boris Dirk podcast. Welcome back, everybody. It has been a little while. BD Pod has been on summer break. A lot of just out living life for the last month or so, and the NBA has been extremely unusually quiet, even by its own sort of summer dead zone standards. Aside from this Kawhi Leonard scandal, which we will not be talking about today, but is fascinating. As always, joined by my co-host Drew Semler. Drew, how are you?
Let's go.
So as I do every summer, have started putting together my player rankings, which I finalize and release before the season starts every year. And I started running into a lot of issues because players these days, I think, are closer and closer to each other in quality and more system environment dependent than they've ever been. So I put together a handful of, we'll call them start bench cuts for us to go through. You could also call them FMKs for the cool kids out there. But I've gotten a trio or 13 trios of players. We'll see how many we get through that I'm going to throw at Drew, and he's going to help me just as I try to finalize my rankings for this coming season. So I've tried to group players together that are somewhat positionally analogous, maybe at similar points in their career. And we're just going to be talking about which player we would most want or rank them 1 to 3 for this season alone. If our goal is to build a team that can have a successful regular season and playoff run, ideally ending in a championship. So, any further clarifications, Drew, before I throw these at you?
No, I just want to say I don't love Pablo Torre's tone. Gotta respect the work. And it looks more each day like he actually has caught Ballmer and the Clippers doing some really shady shit that could get them in some deep trouble. But his affect, Pablo's affect, not for me.
He's
I can't wait to see where
immensely,
this goes, though.
he's immensely smug. Like he's one of the most smudge and arrogant people I've ever
And
seen.
I don't think I could be one of the like cronies on his show whose job is just to like sit there and turn papers over one at a time at the
Oh,
pace that he demands.
what does
I just
that mean?
like this dude's half their age and he's saying like, nope, you're not allowed to turn over evidence piece number 4 until I give you the go ahead.
Yeah,
And but there's something you just obviously have to respect the caliber of the work,
yeah,
um, and the rollout and the fact that he's outthinking an NBA team and one of the richest men on the planet. He's definitely got a lot more good stuff in the holster, and he really understands the rate at which he can reveal information to really make them look dumb and also maximize ad revenue on this content he continues to churn out.
yeah.
I never know how I really feel about this like modern era of journalists as brands and journalists as content creators. It's definitely not the journalistic integrity that God intended, but it's you got to respect it. He is like having a crazy zeitgeisty cultural moment, and it
Yeah.
seems like there's real journalistic rigor behind it, and so I'm just gonna sort of try to swallow the smugness, because it comes down with some good medicine that is exposing Steve Ballmer's potential cheating.
Yeah, real quick. I wonder who tipped him off to it because you don't just like offhandedly, or haphazardly stumble upon Aspiration LLC's bankruptcy filing and like immediately know what KL2 stands for. Like something he had to get a tip from someone, so I'm just like sort of curious about who that was. And then I think he is kind of capturing a moment because he's able to both appeal to kind of like the conspiracy theorist side of society, which has like never been more vocal and outspoken, as well as like the people who long for investigative journalism and sort of more highbrow like sports media content. He's able to kind of cross over and get them both, which I feel like is probably why he has exploded so much over the last year. All right, into the start bench cuts. We're gonna start with some A-listers. It's pretty clear who the best player in the NBA is. I think if you ask 100 NBA fans who the best player is, at least 90 of them would say Nikola Jokic, and I would be one of those 90. For the next three spots, though, there's a lot of debate. So I'm going to throw these at you. Giannis, Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, start, bench, cut, go.
A lot of these I'm going in blind. This was one that I thought about for a couple minutes before the pod, and my mind and my brain and my heart are telling me two different things. If we're talking for this year, my heart, which is what I'm going to roll with for most of this segment, is start Giannis, bench Shea, cut Luka.
Mm.
And I say heart because sort of just like the competitor in me, the neurotic wannabe coach in me is like, I just don't know if I could emotionally handle getting to the most important games in the postseason and seeing Luka spend, a solid percentage of the game, crying to refs and dogging it on defense. We've all seen the skinny Luka pictures. He looks like an absolute dog at Eurobasket, and I bet he'll come back and be a top three in MVP voting this year and make me look dumb. But I just think I'm going to stick to my principles and say, like, until we see Luka healthy through injuries, through just the exhaustion of a full 82 game season, um, until we see him look like himself again in the playoffs, because he was thoroughly outplayed and outcompeted by Anthony Edwards, who's not even in this conversation. I think I'm gonna go Giannis 1, Shea 2, Luka 3. And the Giannis thing is just, we take for granted that without Dame, with basically no help, he was like 31, 16, and 7 against the
Yeah.
Pacers, and it was a competitive 5. It wasn't a close 5, but it
They
was
should
like,
have won
yeah,
two games that they
yeah.
lost, and then they
Like,
won one.
they honored the team badge, and you look at the numbers with Giannis off the court this year with no Dame. The Bucks were like a -9 net rating. They won the minutes Giannis played, and this is one of the worst supporting casts he's had in like probably a half decade. Um, I just think Giannis is 30. I think he's turning 31 relatively soon. This is just, as many smart people have called him, like modern Shaq. That's what I feel like when I'm watching Greece Giannis, just like
Yeah.
dunk balls he shouldn't dunk. Like before Wemby, Giannis was the guy who just dunked balls that didn't make any sense.
Hmm.
And when he's dialed in, is still a really good defender. And I just think we've got, like, unless there's some sort of catastrophic injury, like we've still got a year or two of absolute prime freight train elite competitor Giannis. So I'm gonna go there. This will probably not age so well because the Bucks just don't have a super high ceiling this year. But
Yeah.
in a vacuum, he's my guy. Shea MVP. I don't need to justify that, and I just like that Shea is. You can fit him into any system. He is a defensive plus. And despite the fact that Luka has maybe the highest ceiling in this trio, if we get like 2023 playoff Luka, and Luka we've seen in a lot of playoff series outside of this past one, um, he can be that guy. But I think I'm comfortable with my 1, 2, 3 here. Where are you at?
Yeah, I had to start Giannis as well, and then I went back and forth a lot on Luca and Shea. And I am currently sitting at bench Luca, cut Shea, but it's a very difficult sort of decision where I'm thinking if you put Luca on that OKC team, I think they still win the title. They might win it even more easily, or they didn't win it easily. They went to a seventh game in a couple series, but I think they would be probably an even more dominant offensive team just because Luca, I think, is such a unique individual offensive force when he's at his best. And certainly if we're just talking about the 24-25 season, Shea was better than Luca. It wasn't particularly close. But looking forward to this season, I just think Luca in better shape, with like no injury behind him and just being fully bought in and sort of emotionally adjusted to his new home, I think we're going to see some of the best ball we've seen from him. And there's a large gap on the defensive end between the two of them, but I also do think that Luka is kind of an elite offense unto himself in a way that Shea is an elite scorer, but I don't think he's an elite offense unto himself in the same way that Luka is. So it's really like razor thin margins between the two of them. I'm leaning towards start Giannis, bench Luka, cut Shea, but I could honestly see, I could see Giannis being cut because of health concerns, and just the fact that we haven't seen him be able to do what he does deep into the postseason for a variety of reasons since 2022. We just haven't gotten that. So I could see it honestly any of the three ways, but I landed on start Giannis, bench Luka, cut Shea.
Yeah, Giannis is also the only non-shooter in this trio,
Yeah.
which impacts
Although
obviously lineup flexibility a little bit.
mid-range coming
Um,
along.
yeah, mid-range is definitely coming along, and also we've seen him find ways around that in a playoff setting. Obviously, yeah, Luca two makes total sense. All right, let's do another.
All right. Three defensive unicorn bigs. Bam Adebayo, Chet Holmgren, Evan Mobley. All very similar players in a lot of ways, but I'm gonna let you go. How would you rank the three of them for this season?
Start Mobley, and then the next two is just impossible for me. I think I think I'm gonna bench Bam and cut Chet for this year. Um, First off, love Evan Mobley. Have been on Evan Mobley Island ever since Tim Bontemps went on the low post and said the Cavs should not give Mobley the max rookie extension, which I just thought was ridiculous. He was like 20 years old and had shown so much. Um,
Yeah,
and Bontemps was just a sort of running through that Cade Mobley draft class, just roasting them one at a time. And I'm like, what do you expect dudes to show in their first year or two? And here we are. Mobley got his defensive player of the year. He looks absolutely jacked in some beach photos I've that have surfaced on my feed recently. And I take fit Mobley more seriously than fit Luca in off-season social media because Mobley's been in great shape his whole career. Yeah, and I just really believe in Mobley's like work ethic. I think he's like an incredibly smart basketball player, and it's his skills, his general coordination on offense is like slowly caught up to the way he thinks the game on defense. And so I just really believe one, his shot is going to continue to become more reliable, like 1 inch at a time. And I think one of these years he might actually end up like an Al Horford level floor spacer. It might take a few years, but there's enough touch there. It wouldn't shock me. But he's a really good passer and, you know, obviously one of the best defenders in the world right now. I just think his offensive upside is more ready for this year than Chet's. And then Bam being my number two guy is just an ode to a lot of his iconic playoff performances. The guy that we saw in Paris last year among the best American players in the world, the best American players in America.
yeah.
General Grant's white horse. What color was it? Yeah, I still just like being in a foxhole with Bam in the playoffs. And Chet just won a title, third best guy on his team. The offense is still really raw, and it's hard for me to imagine Chet being your second option on offense on a title team this season. If he grows a ton offensively, again, I might look dumb this year, but right now, my bet would be Mobley, Bam, Chet.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, I had a really hard time with this one. I'm currently it's tough. I think of the three, Bam is the only one who can be a full-time center, which I think counts for something. The other two of them, at this point, they're too skinny, and you need another big next to them to be able to at least anchor the glass and go against sort of stronger bigs from other teams. So that's a point in Bam's favor. If we're talking shooting, that's a point in Chet's favor, where it's easier to fit him with another big because he's a better outside shooter than either of the other two guys are. I think from sort of a general like how much passing and creativity and handle and playmaking you can expect from the big position. Like all three of these guys are like elite marks at that for bigs in the league. It's pretty hard to differentiate between the three of them. Chet's probably the least fluid of the three, but you also have to weigh that he was coming off a fractured hip last year, and that I think made him a significantly different player in the second half of the season than the first. So Mobley is a little tough for me because he is lacking in both the strength and shooting departments relative to, he's lacking in strength relative to Bam. He's lacking in shooting relative to Chet. So for me, I had Mobley third in that group and was sort of going back and forth between Bam and Chet for the top spot. And I think I would lean Bam just because you can play him full-time center without having to worry about his health. And he can go against other bigs. He can guard pretty much anyone in the league outside of Nikola Jokic one-on-one. He's probably more switchable, at least than Chet is. Mobley's very switchable. So Bam, I think I have the least questions about him. Chet and Mobley, I think Chet is a little bit more fit independent, where he can, because of his shooting, he can play next to more types of players, even if Mobley, I think, is a more coordinated athlete at this point.
Yeah, I think this is a more projection based pick. Like I'm not picking Mobley first in this group for what he's shown in the playoffs already.
Hmm.
Just think he is one of those like elite workers who takes big steps years into his career. When you think you know what Evan Mobley's finished product might look like, I think he's going to continue to surprise us. With Chet, like I just saw this video of Chet like bench pressing. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a meme. I thought it was like a Chet lookalike
You got the
because
ick.
it's just, dude, those calves are non-existent, dude. They're twigs, and I don't know if it matters how fluid you are at 7'1", 7'2".
Yeah.
If you're that thin and your center of gravity is that high, like what is the offensive ceiling? Even if you can dribble really well in an open gym and you know have some shooting touch, it
Hmm.
so I like the Bam pick. I already kind of regret taking Mobley over Bam for this year, but I continue to feel like there's something really special about Mobley, and the things that have gone wrong for Cleveland have had very little to do with him. Especially this past year where he took a massive leap and arguably, was like the second or third best center in the league this season. Uh, you're right. He's not really a center. They have Jared Allen, but um, I continue to feel like it was kind of the injuries that killed this version of Cleveland, because this version of Cleveland played really hard and had a
Hmm.
sick culture behind Kenny Atkinson, and things could have looked very different against Indiana
Yeah.
without a couple games of Garland out, a game of Mobley out, and we have no reason to believe Mobley's injury prone. So yeah, I'm riding the Evan train.
Fair enough. If you're right, then Cleveland is going to the finals this year, which they may anyways. But uh, the last thing I'll say is on Chet. I think priority number one for this offseason, besides strength, has to be speeding up the release on his three-point shot, because he's a good shooter, but especially once he came back from his injury, he was a really slow shooter. And there were a lot of times in the finals where he looked open, but it would just take so damn long for him to get his shot off that by the time he was in his motion, Miles Turner was already out, and it wasn't an open shot anymore. So strength and quickening the release, two top priorities for Chet.
Chet should never dribble more than two or three times, like ever. It's just
Yeah.
unfortunate that he's so skilled for his height. I especially noticed this in OKC in the building, like in the two playoff games I saw this year. One of them was Game 7 of the finals. What up? It's just like things go wrong when Chet puts it on the deck, and he he's never going to be anything like a Durant pull up shooter. But I think he should just study the way Durant gets to his spots, because KD's famous for like the 1-2 dribble pull ups, and I think Chet as a dribbler, shot creator for himself is going to have to look more like KD, and less like the BAMs of the world that can like put their back on you, spin, attack closeouts
Hmm.
consistently by putting it on the deck. Like it's just that part of Chet's game looked really far away in the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. Next trio is the distressed athletic guards, distressed assets, that is. So, John Morant, De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Maxey, start bench cut, go.
Oh, so easy. I mean, my start is so easy. It's Tyrese Maxey.
Hmm.
Um, I've been buying this dude for a couple of years now. The Knicks round one will stay in my head forever. He was absolutely incredible in that series. I continue to say, like, when we talk about Maxey in the same conversation as the Jaws and the De'Aaron Foxes, that, like, I think Maxey's defensive ceiling is significantly higher. He's long, he's stocky, um, and I think he consistently cares more than a guy like Ja. Um, so Maxey won, and just like hope he has an electric shooting year again. I think his efficiency took a slight step backwards last year, um, with so little help. And then bench, my two here is I don't know, dude. It's a toss up. I'll probably go Ja just for like the playoff ceiling,
Hmm.
um, and just hope that he's like learned from his mistakes on and off the court. I saw that he showed up on iShow's Speed's IRL stream a
Hmm.
couple days ago and said that his vert is up to 50 inches, um, which he's one of the few people on earth I actually kind of believe that. But Ja 2, and then De'Aaron Fox 3, just because I continue to feel like Fox is one of these guys who is his best, he's most himself with the ball in his hands, and yet he's not good enough to have the ball in his hands too often on a really, really good team. I think he's really good. I think he's overpaid, but still a good player. He's the third best player for me here.
Yeah, I agree. Fox is three. I was leaning Jaw one, Maxi two. It's a little tough. Maxi being the best shooter of the group certainly carries a lot of weight. Best defender, as you said. So I go back and forth. I think Maxi's better as a ceiling raiser if it's just best player on a mediocre team trying to drag them into the playoffs. I'd probably rather have Ja, sort of in the Westbrook lineage. But I don't think either is the number one option on a conference finalist at this point. But I'd probably rather have Maxi as my number two than Ja as my number two.
Bang.
All right. Next category, three rising star forwards, all of whom have jump shot questions. Amen Thompson, Scotty Barnes, and Jalen Johnson. Scotty, maybe you could debate if he's still an ascending star. His stock has definitely taken a hit the most out of those three, but I'd still put him in that category. How would you rank the three of those?
This one's really hard. Jalen Johnson start.
Mm.
And I think that's putting a lot of stock in what we saw last year, but it's now been like a year and a half. 2 years ago, season before last, Trae Young was out for a long time. And the Jalen stats with volume and efficiency were genuinely eye opening. It made me think there's just like a different level ceiling here than we'd ever thought about before. Especially after he crashed out at Duke as like the top high school guy in his class, and it just looked like could become a cautionary tale fast. And here he is, arguably the most important player in Atlanta on a team that looks like it could take a significant step, even if they're not an inner circle contender in the East. So Jalen start, and I can't believe I'm saying this as a guy who's really been a Scotty apologist the last couple of years, but I think Amen is number two here, just
Hmm.
because like in a playoff series, I know what I'm getting from Amen, even if you know he can contribute to spacing issues, and he'll probably you know get called for a few charges just because like he runs out of options sometimes in half court offense. I know that he can guard the other team's most dangerous wing. And I know he can take on most elite on ball guys on the opposing team in a playoff setting. And then obviously if you can get in out in transition, Amen is going to be about as fun as anyone in the league right now. He's a great passer. The question is just like, can he find enough ways to activate the passing as a non-shooter? But that's where I'm at. Scotty, just not seeing him in competitive games the last couple of years, it's just hard to really know where his game is at. He's as talented as anyone on this list, but I'm going Jalen 1, Amen 2, Scotty 3. And I like all three of them. The last thing I'll say is I think I've plugged this stat before on the pod, but one of the most underrated Hawks stats last year, or yeah, it was last year, is before Jalen Johnson had his season ending shoulder injury. He was top 5 in the entire NBA in passes, just straight up passes. Um, Zach Lowe has talked about Trae Young's commitment to screening in a way he had never done before. The Jalen Johnson, Trae Young camaraderie was really fun. And Jalen Johnson is a point forward hub who can play in
Hmm.
transition like a man and dunk with like real authority, but can also hit a 3.5 a game, and his shooting is significantly ahead of the other two on this list. So yeah, the versatility of Jalen Johnson's game compared to like what he looked like a couple of years ago is crazy. And he could be on a path to real stardom. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and if it's not stardom, like I could easily see him being kind of like the Aaron Gordon role next to like a really skilled center, or just being in that sort of like star role player role. I think Aaron Gordon even made an all-star team, or he was at least getting all-star votes. Like he might be in that conversation already this year, and he's there in the same tier for me. But yeah, I had Amen 1, Jalen 2, Scotty 3 for similar reasons. I think so. Shots a question for all of them. I think Jalen's probably the most effective off-ball player of the three, just because he's a good cutter, he's a really good athlete, he's a good roll man, so he can run pick and roll with Trae Young and still punish defenses in that way. Amen and Scotty, we haven't seen them operate off the ball quite in the same way. Amen's a good cutter. Scotty off the ball is kind of an adventure. So I'd say of the three, I like Jalen the most off the ball. Amen's got the most on ball juice in terms of being able to get to his spots even without being able to shoot. So, and then when it comes to defense, Amen's the best of the three by a wide margin. And Scotty, we've seen him be locked in, we've seen him not be locked in. Sort of Jalen Johnson, a little bit of the same. So yeah, I think for just because defense, I think, is the largest gap in terms of skills between the three of them in favor of Amen, and that he's so young, and I see his sort of growth trajectory being huge. I'd expect him to take a little step forward this year and be at the top of that pack. And then Jalen over Scotty just because of his ability to play off the ball a little bit more.
Like the off ball point on Jalen, if you've watched more than a few minutes or even a few minutes of a Scotty Barnes Twitch stream, you will come away wondering if this dude's head is in the right place.
Like on his body.
um, no, figuratively, Max. God, the corporate world is going to kill you. Um, yeah, Scotty is a character, and it's just yeah. I highly recommend search Scotty Barnes on Twitch. You'll see some crazy things. You'll hear some absolutely nutty sound bites. Um, I hope the Raptors can get their shit together because they have a lot of players individually that I like. But it's just been a chaotic few years. And Masai's out. It seems like they're sort of turning a new page, new chapter for Toronto. We'll see. Could go in a lot of different directions, it feels like.
Yeah. All right. Next up is a trio of star guards: Cade Cunningham, Donovan Mitchell, and Devin Booker. All three of them have made all-star teams, all NBA discussion. They're kind of in that like fringe top 10 discussion. How would you have the three of them?
Okay. I told you I was doing a little bit of projection with the Mobley conversation. I think you did a little bit of projection just now with Amen, and a step he could take this year in year 3. I'm going to do a little bit of Cade projection and have Cade 1 here, Mitchell 2, Book 3. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about it because I like Devin Booker a lot, but I question Devin Booker's floor raising ability after the last couple of years of Phoenix Suns basketball. I just
Yeah.
don't know how you can be in love with Cade right now. Forget like any of the stats from last season. Like the eye test was just electric. His ability to like extend possessions like an elite quarterback and just find guys late in the shot clock, Nash dribbles, do a bunch of things that guys his size should not be able to do. I think he's a really underrated like stop start athlete, and he has like such a clean pull up game that's getting better and better. Like 1 second he looks like Sean Livingston in his prime. The next possession he looks like Chris Middleton. Like he can go point guard mode, sort of Kobe, like put my back on you and find a way to create space mode. So yeah, I continue to feel like Cade has a chance to be a legit MVP candidate in the next year or two. And when I say legit, I mean like he'll get like a vote in the top five and gradually approach that conversation of the very best in the world. And then Donovan Mitchell started trying more on defense with the sort of cultural refresh they got from Kenny Atkinson, and obviously was incredible offensively last year for one of the best teams in recent regular season history. So I think I just have to put respect on Donovan Mitchell, like leading what was it, a 64-win team. So and then Book, it's just
Yeah.
at some point I have to hold Booker partially responsible for the direction things have taken in Phoenix. It's not like they've had no talent on that team, and it got ugly fast. So Book has the talent to leapfrog the other two guys. And I think this is a really tight trio, but Book's my number three.
Yeah, and this is all kind of making up basically the 10 to 15 range in my rankings. I had
Yeah,
Mitchell
yeah, yeah.
one.
Sprinkle in the rankings context because obviously
Mhm.
that's what brought us to this conversation in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. So this is kind of 10 to 15. Bam Chet Mobley was kind of all around the 20 mark. Ja Maxi Fox was in the 30s, which speaks to just the depth of talent in the league right now. And then Amen Scotty Jalen, that was more in the mid to late 40s. So just as a little context, I went Mitchell first, just because I think of the three, he's the most unstoppable playoff scorer. We've seen him be the top offensive option on number one seeds in both conferences now. Underrated stat with him is he is a top 10. He's top 10 all time in points per game in the playoffs at 28.3. Also underrated, Devin Booker is number 9 on that list at 28.0 points per game. So very similar career playoff scoring numbers. Donovan in a few more games than Booker's been in, partially because of the lack of success in the last couple of years of the Phoenix Suns. But I don't think that you could put Booker on like Detroit last year and he would be able to lead them into the playoffs in the same way that Cade did this past year. I just don't think he has that level of kind of floor general playmaking to him. We've seen Phoenix tried to do that for the last few years where they were like, we don't need a point guard. Book can be our point guard. KD at times can be a point guard, sort of like the Nets didn't need a coach. You know, KD could be the coach, Kyrie could be the coach. But we saw they did need a point guard. In Detroit, Cade is the point guard. He's the whole offense. And Donovan has been not always the point guard because he's got Garland next to him. In Utah, he had Conley next to him. But I think he's got a little bit more upside as a primary playmaker than Devin Booker has. So for that reason, I go Donovan one, just because I think he's unstoppable at every level. Scoring Cade, I still need to see some improvement from him at the rim. I think if Cade becomes an above average to great rim finisher, he jumps to the front of this pack, but that's still a little hole in his game, as are the turnovers. So for that reason, I go Donovan one, Cade two, Book three.
Next.
Next, another trio of star guards. This time veteran, proven playoff performers. Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson. Go.
Yeah, this one's probably the easiest of the day for me, at least so far. We've got a few more to go. It's Ant 1, Steph 2, Brunson 3. So I'm excited for your rebuttal, you biased asshole. With Ant is the third best, I think, offensive processor and like court mapper of this trio. But I think he's the best player going into this season um, because he became an all world volume 3 point shooter this year, in addition to all the special driving stuff he already brought to the table. His ability to finish over almost any rim protector in the league. I know you like to talk about how much less efficient Ant is and how much worse his offense gets when there's a great rim protector waiting for him at the cup. But
Hmm.
like a lot of that has to do with like the secondary, shot creation, spacing threats that the Wolves have. And like I still believe that Ant is one of the elite drivers in the league and the best rim pressurer of this trio. So Ant won. And then obviously with Ant, I should add, like the defensive ceiling is always there. With his explosiveness and his length and his strength, like when he really locks in, he can guard some of the most dangerous wing creators. Steph at number two, because of that transcendent Steph effect, the way he warps the court, I think is still, it's not quite peak, but it's not as far from peak as it should be for his age.
Hmm.
And I just love the way he makes offenses churn. Um, Brunson three, because he is the opposite of what I just said about Steph. And I don't think that's because like Brunson doesn't know how to move without the ball or, is like a fundamentally selfish player. But he
Yeah.
made a lot of selfish decisions this year, probably by design, probably due to some Tibbs, lack of creativity. As good as Brunson was in the playoffs this past season, there were just too many slow, dribble the shot clock out and take a shot that I feel like he could get with 20 seconds, or he can get, sort of whenever he wants, instead of really probing and pushing to find a better shot for himself or someone else. And again, I don't know how much of that was, the way their offense was designed, but he was definitely the least fun guy to watch of this trio in the playoffs. And that's why he's number three for me. I think the other two guys are just more valuable game changers still right now.
Yeah, fair. I had, lest you blaspheme me, I had Brunson third as well in this trio. Steph one, Ant two is what I went. So I went Steph one just because I still think the offensive, both floor and ceiling raising that he provides is second to maybe only Jokic in the league. It's still the two of them and Luka are the three best offensive engines, as the nerds like to say, in the league. I think he's still elite at every aspect of offense, and defensively is like still putting on strength and holds his own. Certainly better than Brunson defensively. Certainly neither of them are close to Ant defensively. But what made me put Ant just down a little bit compared to Steph, and I gave him the edge over Brunson because of the defense and the gap in the defense being a lot greater than the gap in the offense is between him and Brunson, is I've seen his offense fail in the playoffs a couple times against OKC. Granted, a lot of teams' offenses failed against OKC, but like Halliburton was still able to have some sort of great games against that OKC defense. Luka a couple years ago was still able to. So like, and obviously those are some of the elite offensive players we have in the league, but that's what it takes to crack the top five. And this is sort of the 6 to 10 range on my list that these guys are all in. And Steph, we've seen him have bad individual series, but a lot of it is because, he's getting doubled out all the time and he's really good at punishing that. Brunson, I honestly don't know since he's gone to New York. There hasn't been a series where he's been contained offensively. He's been at or around 30 points a game on, for the playoffs, decent efficiency on extremely tough shot making in pretty much every series he's been in as a Knick. Edwards has, I think, two really strong punches, which are driving to the basket and the pull up threes. But once you get towards like the elite of the elite teams and the elite defenses who can take those away, I don't think he has as many counters to his game as Steph and Brunson do offensively, where if he's not getting the three and he's not getting to the basket, the pull-up shooting in the mid-range is suspect. The passing out of double teams and overall decision making on offense is still suspect. And I don't know if it'll ever get to a point of being really great. So for all those reasons, I've Steph one just because his offensive transcendence combined with like defensive competence, I think is the best combination of the two sides. And then even though I think Brunson is a better and more proven playoff scorer than Anthony Edwards, the gap in the defense is too large for me to put him above Ant. So Ant two, Brunson three.
I'm surprised to have you to hear you have Steph above Ant. Like back to back conference finals, I don't think Ant's supporting cast has been significantly better than Steph's by any
I would
stretch.
disagree. I think. I also
All
don't
right.
think it's back-to-back conference finals if Steph didn't pull his hamstring in game one.
Yeah, that's true.
But that
Uh,
also counts against Steph that he's older and more injury prone.
Thank you. Number 7. What do you got?
All right. Another trio of young guards. Uh, Darius Garland, Jamal Murray, who's not that young anymore, and Trey Young. Go.
Uh, 1, Jamal. It's got to be Jamal. 2, 2, Trey. 3, Garland. It hurts. It hurts. Um, I just think like I need to not be a total nerd and put some respect on Trey Young's accomplishments,
Mhm.
especially like I talked about, like the massive jump in offensive selflessness this past year, setting more screens, letting Jalen Johnson take up more space in the offense. Um, I'm in a public place, but people have just left, so I'm going to stop mumbling a little bit in this episode. But I've got Jamal one. I think he's just significantly bigger than the other two, goes without saying, and that just gives you a lot less defensive angst. Um, and then Trey and Garland are like relatively similar styles of player, similar defensive issues that they'll cause no matter who they're playing with. Um, and I think Trey has just been a more consistently special offensive engine. And we've also never seen Trey as like a true number 2 or 3 in an offensive pecking order. And I've got to believe Garland wouldn't be quite as effective as Trey in the same role, at least at this stage in Garland's development. I want to see Garland healthy for an entire playoffs. Um, I'd love to see him put on a little more girth and be able to, stand his ground a little bit more, a la Kyle Lowry. Like guys around his height have been able to figure out how to blend in defensively. So it's not out of the, question that he could get there. But right now, I feel pretty good about Jamal one. I don't need to talk about Jamal's offense in the playoffs, even though it hasn't been peak Jamal in a couple of years. Like I still trust that guy with the ball in his hands against the best in the world. Trey 2, Garland 3. Where are you at?
I agree with Trey over Garland. I think those two are easier to compare to each other. I just think, yeah, as an offensive engine, Trey is probably capable of holding an entire offense on his shoulders in a way that Garland isn't. Um, Jamal is definitely the hardest to place for me because regular season, he's probably far below the other two. He's definitely far below Trey in the regular season. Playoffs, he's the most proven performer of the three. I sort of defaulted to having him in the middle, so I went Trey, Jamal, Garland, but I just have a very hard time ranking Jamal Murray in general. This is also kind of in that 30-ish range, like 25 to 33 is where I have all these guys. Um, and they're all in the same bucket with Maxi and Ja and Fox too. Like I think there's a huge glut of sort of fringe all-star guards in the NBA who are all about as good as each other, and depending on their team context, may wildly go up and down in rankings between seasons, honestly. But yeah, I think just because of being an offense unto himself, I put Trey one, Jamal two, and then Garland three. All right. I've got five left. Let's rapid fire these guys. Ready?
Hit me.
Wings, Jalen Williams, Jimmy Butler, Jalen Brown. Go.
J Dub, no brainer, number one. And then I really hate to say this. Jimmy is one of my favorite players to ever grace a basketball court. I'm going Jalen two, Jimmy three. And it's 100% because Jimmy turns 36 before this season starts. Actually, he turns 36 in 2 days, and so much wear and tear on that body. He didn't look like himself when he had to be the number one guy after Steph went out in the playoffs this past spring. And yeah, Jalen Brown's just still in his physical prime. He's not nearly as clutch as Jimmy Butler. I don't care that he won a finals MVP. And Jalen's shot comes and goes, but it's definitely more consistent from long range than Jimmy. But yeah. And then J Dub at one. It's just a no brainer, I think, after what he just did with like a fucked up wrist in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. J-Dub one for me. I'd probably still overrate Jimmy Butler, and part of it's probably I'm lower on Jalen Brown. I'd put Jimmy two, Jalen three, Brown. But I do think we're going to learn a lot about Jalen Brown this year with being the clear top dog on a team that does not have elite talent around him. Very curious to see what he looks like. And if he impresses this year, then he's going to move up the list. Um, Next three, supporting fringe star guards: Desmond Bain, Austin Reeves, Derek White. Go.
Derek White one, Bane two, Reeves three. Love all of these guys. They're all in that tier of like elite, like number three, probably. I don't know if Reeves is an elite number three, but Derek White, because he can be one of the best guard defenders in the world and was awesome again on both ends last year, and is just a sniper. I know you were terrified every time Derek White shot a long three against the
Yeah.
Knicks. Bane, one of the best shooters in NBA history. I saw Brett Usher tweeted some sick stat that like of guys who maybe it's have taken like six a game. Like Bane is one of like five in NBA history who's over 40% for his career. And it's like, him, Steph, Clay, like all the guys, the best shooters in the history of the sport. Reeves three, again, Reeves had a disappointing round like most of the Lakers did against the Wolves this year. Definitely was attacked on defense, couldn't make a shot. I still love Austin Reeves. I still think the Lakers would be dumb if they traded him for someone not as good who might be a better fit defensively with Luka and old LeBron. But yeah, I feel really good about that order. And Derek White might be my favorite player of this era. So he just kind of is at one by default.
Yeah. I went Bain, White, Reeves, but I can see the argument for White. He's always the scariest player on the Celtics to me. He was actually missing open threes in those games that the Knicks came back in. I was shocked every single time they didn't go in. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it really means something that Derek White got that nod for Team USA. Like the
Hmm.
best coaches and players in the world agree that dude is, yeah, like maybe a top 20 player. He's never going to be the best player on a really good team, but like once we get to second or third best dudes, like he just slots in so beautifully next to the very best of the best.
Yeah. All right. Three more pairings. I'm going to cut the last one because it's boring. OG Anunoby, Aaron Gordon, Trey Murphy, like star role playing forwards. How would you rank those three?
That is absolutely impossible. Three players at different points in their careers. This is so hard. I don't know. Don't do this to me. I
Okay.
guess I guess Trey Murphy, until we see Trey Murphy in the playoffs, it's really hard to put him up against these two guys.
Yeah.
I actually no, I recuse myself. I think Aaron Gordon, I would want the most on my team in a playoff series this year. OG, I'm more confident that like I know exactly what I'm getting from him. So maybe he'd be number two. And Trey Murphy, who might end up having the best career of these three because he's that talented a shooter, and has a lot of juice off the bounce and insane size to be as smooth a shooter as he is. Like He's probably 3 going into this season in this trio. And you know how much I love Trey Murphy. So there I am saying I'm going to recuse myself and then talking longer than you wanted me to.
All right. I had Trey third as well. I put OG over Aaron Gordon
Oh,
slightly
fuck you.
just because I think he can guard more types of players. He's a better defender, even though Aaron Gordon's also an amazing defender. Uh, and honestly, the shooting is a wash now. I used to say OG's a better shooter, but Gordon really impressed me with his shooting and the confidence with which he
Yeah.
shot in these last playoffs.
Oh
But yeah,
my
that was
God. I
a
mean, dude,
mean one.
pushing the Thunder to 7 was legendary. It just
Yeah,
was. And Gordon was unbelievable. Yeah. And his shooting got better in the playoffs, like you said.
yeah,
All right. Suggs. We've got Jalen Suggs, Jalen, Jaden McDaniels, Mikal Bridges.
yeah.
Who do you go first?
All right, I'm probably ludicrously high on. Actually, no. I had Jalen Suggs in the middle. I have this is probably this is a tough one too.
This one we were trying to figure out. This was one of the conversations that like spawned this episode.
I think I put McHale one, Suggs two, McDaniels three, and part of that is it's a cop out, but Suggs' injury history. I think if I was guaranteed a healthy Suggs, I might put him one in this group. Um, McHale's on the other end of the spectrum where he's going to play every game, but that's also a little bit because he's kind of contact averse and doesn't put himself in position to get injured in the way that Suggs does, who just like causes havoc every moment he's on the court. But yeah, I go Bridges one, Suggs two, McDaniels three, but splitting hairs.
I think I go Suggs 1 if he's
Mm.
healthy. I agree with you.
Hmm.
The injury concerns are legit at this point. I forget. Did I think I had Suggs 3 that year after Cade and Mobley in that draft class. I love Suggs. He's unbelievable. He's bound to get hurt frequently for the rest of his career because he hits the deck all the time. Just like he's a fucking warrior. His 3-point shooting has gotten better and better. He is an insane athlete. He gets some of those Derek White like guard blocks that just warm your heart as a lover
Hmm.
of basketball. And I think he's built for the playoffs. So I'm gonna go. Actually, no. Maybe I've seen enough from Jaden McDaniels. I'm gonna go one McDaniels. I'm gonna go
Oh,
one McDaniels. Uh, that's also hoping his offense continues to get sort of fleshed out.
yeah.
I've talked about how much I believe that like he's going to continue to grow on the offensive end because of the flashes. But I just love his toughness. I love that he has zero respect for Luka in that matchup, even though Luka's gotten the better of him the majority of the times they faced each other. Like he just showed like a competitive disdain for Luka in
Hmm.
last year's round 1 that was really, really sexy to me. Um, so I'm going to go McDaniels 1, Suggs 2, McHale 3. And McHale like rose for the Knicks in the playoffs, and I don't take that for granted. I actually really respect McHale, like the fact that his jumper looked broken before the season started, and even though he was contact averse all season, and it was often infuriating, even in the playoffs, that he didn't completely lose his head and he was still like way above average for them, speaks to his toughness. And if Bridges comes back shooting like he did a couple of years ago, he could easily be the best on this list. Like it might not
Yeah.
even be a conversation. Um, but I think I'm just going to swing on the ceiling of the other two, feeling like we haven't seen even close to the best from either of them.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I agree. If McHale gets back to shooting non-corner threes at an average to good level, he's going to be number one on this list. I was so impressed by his mid-range shot making last year. Like that was such a whenever Brunson was off the court, like that was just water in the desert
Yeah.
for the offense.
No, he
Yeah.
was like 6'6" KD.
Yeah, literally. All right, last one. Some We'll finish with some all-star guards in the Eastern Conference. Two of them play on the same team. Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and Pascal Siakam. How do you see those three? For context, this is the mid 20s.
Siakam 1. It's not recency bias, it's recency respect.
I
It's
love
just
that.
how can you not give Pascal the gold medal in this trio after what he just did in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Um, love him. And he's the type of guy like who will get shit from idiots online for not having like the deepest bag. But like on the other side of that same coin is he plays concise basketball. He knows his strengths and he's tough as shit. And we've seen it translate. So Siakam 1, I'm gonna go Franz 2, Paolo 3. And if we're talking like a guy you want to have as the epicenter of your build, like over the next half decade, like probably Paolo, just because he has some of that just like Giannis, you can't stop him when he has momentum thing that like just separates him physically from the other two. But I think for the playoffs right now, I would probably take the quicker processing of Franz over Paolo, and hope that Franz can get back to shooting like he used to. Um, yeah, Pascal, Franz, Paolo.
All right, we can end with an agreement. I have the same order for my for those three. Pascal at 22, Franz at 25, and Paolo at 27 for the moment. Um, I agree. And with Siakam, I just think it's so valuable to have a guy who's good at everything. As reductive as that sounds, like he's kind of, and this is sort of what Tatum is, where Tatum's not, he doesn't have really any elite skill, but he's just kind of an A or an A minus at everything. Pascal's kind of the same way, except he's like a B plus or A minus at everything. By the way, this is why I compared Cooper Flagg to him as a prospect, where Flag also likewise doesn't have maybe any individual skill where he's an A plus, except for motor, I'd argue. But he's an A minus at least at everything. And Pascal, like there are no holes in his game. He can handle the ball very well for someone his size. If you leave him open, he can hit threes, even though like maybe that's the one hole. He's a good playmaker for someone his size. Good on-ball defender, good off-ball defender. He's disruptive. He's got good motor. He can fit into a lot of different styles of offense, and is just like perfect playing off of Halliburton and Indy. So for those reasons, and just how can you not be blown away with how he looked being at time? I mean, he's the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and at times looked like the best player in that OKC series as well. So you have to put him one, and then I agree. We've sort of belabored the Franz and Paolo debate over the sort of last several months on this pod, and I agree that for right now, I'm going with Franz first, just because I like his defense more. I like his playmaking more. I like his aggression, getting to the basket more as well. So, but Paolo, if he leans into, as I've always said, like leaning more into the LeBron or Blake Griffin elements of his game and less into the Carmelo Anthony elements of his game, is his trajectory to long-term success. Yeah, so I'd go those three in that order. Siakam, and also when he was in Toronto, we saw him be elite in a finals. So he's a proven playoff performer in the way the other two are not.
Agreed. If Steve Kerr would play Franz over Paolo. And
Yeah,
when in doubt, that's one of the places my head goes to. Max also included the trio of Zubats, Julius Randle, and Sabonis. That's the one he said he didn't want to do. And I think you already have it in the right order. I think Zoo is purely additive and so self-aware as a player. I couldn't do the Julius Randle inconsistency, but I have to take him over Sabonis, who's just exhausted all of his playoff chances with me. So there's your closer.
Sabonis, forever the king in advanced metrics, where every advanced metric paints him as a top 20 to 25 player in the NBA, and he's probably going to end up in the late 50s on my list.
I feel so bad for the team that inevitably trades for him.
Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I thought Vooch retired the other day, by the way. It turned out he only retired for his national team.
Yeah, I
For a
saw
second, I
that
was like,
too.
oh shit. It's the best news in Chicago in like 7 years.
Yeah,
No, Vooch is really good, but I don't know what the hell Chicago is up to right now.
yeah. All right. we've made it through. We've made it through the start bench cuts. This is
Yeah, it's good to be back. We'll be coming back to you guys with some other stuff soon.
hopefully
And
some
get
guests.
Yeah, we're gonna start exercising the pod muscles again and get back into it.
Yeah.
But this wasn't bad. This wasn't bad. We're getting back into it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you, and talk to you soon. Peace.
Boris Dirk.